I love horror. I reckon I've watched more horror films this year than most people have watched in their lifetime. Ever since I was relatively young, I've been fascinated and intrigued by the freaky shit that goes bump in the night. So it only makes sense that I'm a big fan of horror games, right? Well, yeah. No, kind of, it's going to take some explaining. So what do I mean exactly? Well, like I said, I love horror as a genre, so why do I have such mixed feelings about horror games? Well, let me be more specific. I just don't think that modern horror games are very scary. And for me, that's the most important part of a horror genre. Nothing in the past 10 years has never really scared me. So with the Silent Hill 2 remake just around the corner, will it actually make horror games scary again? I hope so. But that's a pretty bold statement, which I reckon many people won't agree with, so I think it's only fair I explain what I mean and where I'm coming from, and then you can tell me how much of an idiot I am. So let's address the elephant in the room. Resident Evil is far and away the biggest horror video game franchise, not only now, but has been since the first entry in 1996. And in recent years, after having a bit of a rough patch during the early 2010s, Resident Evil has never been better. With the excellent remakes of 2, 3 and 4, and with 7 and 8 having gone back to their horror roots after 4, 5 and 6 being more action based, how dare I suggest that there's no scary modern horror games? Well, this very well might be a hot take, but here goes. The Resident Evil games are not very good horror games. None of them. Not even when the series really tried to focus on it with 7 and 8. Now I understand that's pretty wild for me to claim, but that's no way means that they are bad games. Far from it. They're all fantastic games. Well, except maybe you. You weren't so good. But the rest of the games, in particular 2 Remake and Village, are some of my favourite games in the series. But if I sit down and think about it, and I'm honest with myself as an adult, am I scared of anything in these games? I think this is very much down to personal preference, as like I said before, I love horror. I've watched probably hundreds of horror movies over the years, so what I find scary and what some of you might find scary might be drastically different. But don't get it twisted, the games obviously have horror elements about them. They're either set in a spooky mansion/house, a spooky police station, or spooky Europe. Fill them with spooky things such as zombies, vampires, super mutants, and them damn dogs. It's clear that the games are meant to be spooky, so why do I think they're not very good at being horror games? The Resident Evil games is that they are very gamey games. What do I mean by that? Well, all in the main series games are designed in a particular way. That they're not very long and are designed to be replayed multiple times by giving you a grade. The better the grade, the better the reward you get, making the subsequent playthroughs a lot easier by giving you things like an unlimited rocket launcher, which feels very archaic and fun to play, which to me, although it makes the games instantly more replayable and fun to play, it very much takes away from the horror aspects of the game. What was perhaps a tense or even scary experiences with characters like Mr. X and Nemesis become annoying and a bit of a pain in the arse, because their initial horror appeal that you might have felt on your first playthrough goes away because the thing with Mr. X and Nemesis is that they are not scary. Yeah, they might make you sweat a bit upon a first encounter, but once you realise that for the most part you can loop them around in a circle in the remakes, they lose a lot of their lustre. And with the original games, obviously they are products of their time, so it's a bit harsh to judge them on how scary they are by modern standards, but can you in all honesty say that these are scary in 2024? The last point I want to make in my argument is simply the character of Lady Dimitrescu. When discussion of Resident Evil Village is ever brought up, one of the first things most people bring up is the nearly 10 foot tall vampire lady that stalks you around the halls of Castle Dimitrescu. But not that she's scary or oppressive. No, the thing is, everyone wants to bring up is the fact that the tall vampire lady is hot, and most players, instead of running away from her, want to run towards her and feel her loving embrace. So it says a lot about how scary the game is to most people. One of the biggest and scariest threats of the game has been memed to oblivion and probably has too much Rule 34 art to count. Now then, Silent Hill 2 is a game that needs absolutely no introductions. Everyone who even has a small appreciation for horror games has played or at least watched people play this horror masterpiece. So with the announcement of a remake, there was excitement that the game could be brought back for modern audiences. Since if you want to play the game in modern day, you have to spend a fortune on a PS2 copy or play it using other methods. But the general reception to the remake's announcement was more skepticism more than anything, and for good reason, as Konami haven't exactly been great over the past 10 years, and the team behind the remake, Bloober Team, have had their own set of controversies. So the writing was on the wall that this remake was not going to reach the fabled heights of the original, and when the first gameplay trailer was released, to say people were unimpressed was a bit of an understatement. But over the past couple of months, Konami have been showing more of the game. The general reception to the game has turned around, including my own. Of course, there's still a little bit of skepticism, but that's to be expected because of how beloved the original is, and for good reason. Silent Hill 2 is unmatched. When it comes to psychological horror, no game before or since has been able to match what Silent Hill 2 achieved all the way back in 2001. The richly covered fog over the town of Silent Hill is so iconic and drips in atmosphere that other horror games only wish that they could replicate. And the story of James Sunderland's search for his wife is a harrowing tale. So I think now putting Silent Hill 2 back in the spotlight after Silent Hill has been dormant for over 12 years could do really well and actually make horror games scary again. But why would it do well? Landscape in gaming is changing all the time. What was the big thing in gaming back in the 90s, 2000s and 2010s are all different to what it is now. And around the time that Silent Hill was having its decline, not only in sales and game quality, it was 2012. We were in a time where everything was trying to compete with Call of Duty. Even Resident Evil tried and failed, but since then, the landscape of gaming has changed once again, and Resident Evil has come back stronger than ever. So why not Silent Hill? Honestly speaking, the last horror game that gave me any sort of semblance of dread, anywhere close to what Silent Hill 2 made me feel, is Alien Isolation 10 years ago, 2014. There's a clear lack of true psychological horror games on the market. I would be remiss to mention the indie games that have tried to fill the void. Little Nightmares and Amnesia the Bunker have been some highlights to me, but none have been really anywhere close to what Silent Hill 2 brought to the table. So maybe the only way we will get a psychological horror game on the level of Silent Hill 2 is another Silent Hill game. So here's hoping that the remake is good, please God let it be good, and sell well so we can get more, because Silent Hill just might make horror games scary again. Once again, I want to emphasise that this is only my opinion on the current state of modern horror games and how I want things to change. So you might have different ideas to me, and you know what, I encourage it. I'm always willing to hear what other people's stances are on things that I care about. So if you disagree wildly with what I have to say, then let me know in the comments. I read them all, positive or negative. I appreciate everyone's opinion. So if you like the video, please consider liking and subscribing. And once again, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you again.